Our story begins at a grand, sun-drenched temple, its ancient pillars hinting at a divine purpose. We meet a tiny, pink-haired baby sitting alone on an ornate throne, who reveals she has just woken up in this strange, white space. Before her stands a wise old man as she realizes this is her second death and this bizarre space is her afterlife. But the biggest shock hits her as she looks at her tiny hands. She's been turned into a baby. The pink-haired baby senses this death feels different, and the old man confirms it, explaining she's a candidate for regression and had to revert to her original form. She introduces herself. Her name is Shushu, and her gown is marked with 2 distinctive black stars. Shushu flashes back to her first life as a level 99 pro gamer and wildly popular streamer who never showed her face. Her streaming career and her life came to an abrupt end when she died of a sudden heart attack right at her desk. After that first death, she didn't go to the white space. Instead, she opened her eyes to a whole new world. This new world was a fairy tale kingdom, centered around a magnificent, sprawling palace. She was reborn in the Zenta Empire as its second princess, beginning her second life. In this life, she had a war hero mother who died long ago, a kind but sickly father, and a lovely older sister named Latia. At first, she was just happy to have a second chance at life, but that happiness was destined to be shattered. Soon, she found herself dying for a second time. Tragedy struck when her father was killed during a revolt, and her cruel, power-hungry uncle seized the throne. Her uncle locked her away in a cold room, assigning a harsh teacher who beat her relentlessly. Saved only by a kind nanny, she survived until her uncle's death, only to be forced onto the throne as a puppet emperor, living and dying without ever tasting freedom. Her flashback ends, and Shushu finds herself back in the white void, surrounded by other babies, all facing a mysterious veiled woman on a throne. The veiled woman with long white hair speaks, announcing that all the candidates have been gathered. She announces a special gift for the most innocent among them, but Shushu is too busy fighting to keep her wobbly baby head upright. The woman explains the rules. They'll be ranked by innocence to determine their next life's family the best for first place, and a bad environment for third. Then comes the bombshell. Anyone who doesn't rank high enough won't be reborn at all, leaving Shushu utterly stunned. Shushu panics, remembering she was born to bad people in her last life, and the other babies, realizing the stakes, begin to cry. The serene void erupts into chaos as all the babies wail in terror. It's a full-blown supernatural daycare meltdown. While one baby throws a tantrum, the veiled woman just looks bored, clearly unimpressed by the dramatics. One of the other babies notices that Shushu is the only one wearing a star, realizing with dread that the others must have died first. With tears in her eyes but a firm resolve, Shushu decides she's ready to face her fate, saying a silent goodbye to her friends. The veiled woman watches her, intrigued by this baby's quiet acceptance and willingness to sacrifice. Impressed, she offers Shushu a bonus prize for her maturity, a special ability of her own. 3 mysterious, colorful pouches suddenly appear before a very surprised Shushu. Her eyes light up as she recognizes a pouch of her favorite cotton candy cookies and makes her choice. A girl's gotta have her priorities. As she chooses, a brilliant, glowing crown materializes above her head. The woman smiles, promising to send her to a good family this time, leaving Shushu speechless with hope. The woman declares it's time, and Shushu is enveloped in a dazzling, starry light, vanishing from the void. As she's transported away, Shushu smiles peacefully, ready for her new beginning. The veiled woman watches her go, wondering if this soul from another world will be able to smile when they next meet. Holding a vision of the crowned Shushu, the woman reveals her true plan. She's searching for a successor who can make a grand comeback. The scene changes to a gorgeous new estate, surrounded by a garden of perfect pink roses. Reborn again, Shushu immediately throws up, worrying her new caretaker, but she knows this isn't just a simple case of baby nausea. The horrible truth dawns on her, and she breaks down crying. She's been scammed, reborn into the exact same imperial family from her miserable second life. As Shushu wails in betrayal, the veiled woman is seen flying away from the palace with a triumphant laugh. It was a setup all along. A system window pops up, confirming user Shushu meets the conditions, but she screams in her mind that she can't live this nightmare all over again. She collapses on the floor, utterly defeated. She'd been scammed. Hard. She remembers her tragic life as a puppet emperor, surrounded by villains, and can't believe she's back in this nest of vipers. A man tries to comfort the crying baby, but her thoughts drip with sarcasm. What a good family this is. Shushu sits alone in a lavishly decorated but empty room, a gilded cage she knows all too well. But as she looks at her reflection, her despair hardens into a steely gaze. This time will be different. She then sees her sister from her past life, a sweet young girl with pink hair and kind green eyes. The sight of her sister's bright green eyes and familiar pink hair sparks a memory, and perhaps a new plan. As she reflects on her sister, she realizes they had different eye colors, a detail she hadn't noticed before. In her memory, her sister was the most beautiful and lovable baby in the world. A memory of the veiled woman's voice echoes in her mind, repeating the single word she was told: return. The scene shifts back to the magnificent palace, her new yet terrifyingly familiar home. A voice calls out, "Princess Shushu?" And she realizes with a jolt that her name hasn't changed. She thinks back to her first life, where her online persona was a stark contrast to her timid, real-world self. A woman knitting is identified as Princess Nini's nanny. A woman with dark purple hair calls her Nini and tells her to call her sister, leaving the baby completely baffled. The woman clarifies that the princess doesn't have a sister, only Princess Latia, which sends Shushu spiraling into confusion. The horrible truth dawns on her. She wasn't reborn as herself, but as her older sister, Latia, who died of an illness. Looking at her reflection, she's utterly stunned, asking herself why she now looks exactly like her sister Latia. Atha Nanny panics, thinking she upset the princess, while Shushu realizes the veiled woman must have known she was a transmigrated soul. In a flashback to the void, she wonders if the veiled woman knew all along that she was a soul from another world. The narrative reveals the cruel twist. Shushu is now Latia, and the original Latia, who became her younger sister, died instead. Hick, overwhelmed by this revelation, she breaks down into tears as a woman tries to comfort her. To soothe her, the woman offers a piece of what looks like cotton candy, and Shushu can't resist taking a big bite. Nom! The taste is incredible. A wave of pure sweetness washes over her. Snapping out of her sadness, she wonders if regressing into a baby has turned her mind into one too. A moment of clarity hits her as she lies among flowers, a new resolve forming. The nanny, whose name is Nini, holds her close, gushing about how lovely Princess Shushu is and calling her a treasure. Shushu is touched by the genuine affection, her eyes wide with emotion. In her nanny's arms, surrounded by knitting supplies, she finds a moment of peace. Deciding to lean into her new role, she musters up her cutest, most powerful weapon, a strategic wink. It works a little too well. Nini completely loses it, screaming, "Oh my god!" 3 maids named Rona, Betty, and Pepe arrive, asking Nini what's wrong. Nini directs their attention to the baby, and as Shushu smiles sweetly, the maid Rona clutches her chest, completely overwhelmed by the cuteness. Shushu is impressed with her own power, smugly thinking about how much people like her winks, and contemplates a double wink for max damage. She wonders if she can live this life as happily as her sister did, feeling a newfound sense of purpose. Enjoying her new life, she's showered with love from her adoring nanny and maids, and she's eating it all up. A brilliant light suddenly sparkles from the window, catching her attention. Shushu points excitedly at the light, but her nanny Nini is confused, unable to see anything at all. She stares at the light, realizing it's the same color as the second mysterious pouch the veiled woman offered her. A spark of understanding ignites in her eyes. A glowing blue system window appears, announcing the opening of a general channel. The system reveals the channel's participants, the 3 maids, Rona, Betty, and Pepe, leaving her utterly bewildered. It's a chat window. Rona's message appears, gushing about the princess. Shushu realizes this is the same broadcast system from her first life. Another message pops up from her nanny, declaring the princess is the most beautiful girl in the world. As Nini cuddles her, a system notification announces she has gained 30 points of interest. She's getting likes in real time. The 3 maids smile warmly, and another notification confirms she's gained 30 more points from them. She tries to grab another candy, but Nini gently stops her. She quickly deploys her ultimate weapon, the puppy dog eyes, pleading for just one more. Nini caves immediately, and Shushu happily nods in victory. She's got her wrapped around her tiny finger. A new system alert pops up. God is impressed by her adaptability and is upgrading her streamer abilities, granting her a special trait. The system reveals her new sulfur monosulfide rated concept, a pure child. With God's blessing, she's destined to be loved by everyone. She glances at the system window, wondering what other surprises this new life has in store for her. Thud, thud. The sound of heavy footsteps echoes through the grand hall, breaking the peace. A maid bursts through the doors in a panic, shouting for Miss Nini, announcing an emergency. Outside, a lavish carriage pulls up to the palace, signaling the arrival of an important visitor. A man with reddish-brown hair steps out, looking up at the grand estate with a serious expression. The maid nervously announces that they have a guest, and Shushu looks on with a sense of foreboding. With heavy footsteps, a formidable man with fiery red hair and a dark cloak makes his entrance, flanked by his associates. Seen through the grand palace windows, the group's arrival casts a long shadow over the ornate hall. In her nanny's arms, Shushu recognizes the visitor Berg Willow and wonders with dread why he's here. The narration describes him as a mountain of a man, handsome, with cold eyes and blazing, flame-colored hair. Berg looks annoyed, clearly not wanting to be there, while a nervous Shushu clutches onto Nini's dress for safety. She recalls his past, the greatest warlord of the North and the half-brother of her deceased mother, Scarlet Willow. She remembers his tragic fate in her second life, if only he hadn't died fighting the poison dragon, Kitanta. His death was the trigger for the bloody revolt that ultimately destroyed everything. She recalls the legend. A monster appeared that only a duke with dragon's blood could defeat, and Duke Willow succeeded. But his victory came at a great cost. He died from injuries sustained in a previous battle. In her past life as emperor, she remembers feeling a pang of sadness at his funeral, even though they barely knew each other. Back in the present, a blood-splattered and bruised Berg dismisses the situation with a curt, whatever. Nini asks if they're there for a subjugation, but Berg scoffs, asking why he should bother. Shushu's mind races. If it's a subjugation now, it must be for the fire dragon, Kitanta. She knows this is the fight that will fatally injure him, all part of the Emperor's secret scheme. A familiar ding rings out as a system window appears, announcing that her concept attribute has been activated. But Shushu couldn't care less about system alerts. Right now she's a baby, and she wants cotton candy. She flashes back to the Imperial family's curse, knowing they plan to use her as a sacrifice to the divine beast. Berg's light purple-haired aide, Grant, warns him the Emperor is looking for weakness and questions his involvement with the princess, his own nephew. Her memories of her second life are filled with bitterness. He ignored her letters and pleas for help. He was a bad person. Nini steps in protectively, but Shushu decides to take matters into her own tiny hands, trying to get the Duke's attention. If he dares to hurt her nanny, she thinks fiercely, she'll stab him right in the eye. She reminds herself that at least he's not the Emperor, who would kill anyone who dared to interrupt him. Nini nervously suggests the Duke join them for a meal, and Shushu seizes the opportunity with a strategic wink. The green-haired aide whispers to Berg, urging him to stay for lunch to avoid another summons from the Emperor. Berg considers it, while Shushu notes to herself that he and the Emperor were definitely not on good terms. Looks like she's stuck having an incredibly awkward family dinner with her estranged uncle. She reflects on the Empire's powers, starting with the Imperial family, represented by a blood-soaked lion on a stained glass throne. The second power is symbolized by figures representing the seasons, day and night. And finally, there's the Wizard's Tower and the Duke of Willow, ruler of the North, bound to the Empire by a betrothal alliance. The Willow family's territory is rich with mines, metals, and beast byproducts, effectively an independent country. Their relationship with the Imperial family is strained, as the current Emperor usurped the throne, and her own mother, a Willow war hero, died fighting for them. This forces a tense, unavoidable alliance between the two powerful families. A mysterious blonde-haired man appears in her thoughts, a figure she doesn't recognize. Nini feeds Shushu, who thinks it tastes delicious, and encourages her to try eating on her own. With Nini cheering her on, Shushu enthusiastically tries to feed herself. Holding her spoon high, she gets the Duke's attention with a cheerful shout. "Uncle!" Berg is taken aback, while Grant blushes at the sight. Shushu just repeats her new title for him. He's her only living relative, so she decides she has to call him that, even if he ignored her before. Her first move, Operation Win Him Over with Candy. A random thought crosses her mind. Neither she nor her sister Latia were blonde, so who was that man? Nini looks on with concern, while Shushu thinks about how much she now wishes for someone's love, just like Nini's. With renewed purpose, she adorably offers the lollipop to her uncle, but her main target, the Duke, remains completely stone-faced, and Shushu starts to tear up in frustration. That's all it takes for a full-blown meltdown, as Shushu wails for her uncle and nanny, shocking both men. Grant nervously passes the sobbing baby to Berg, who is stunned when she immediately stops crying and just stares at him. Cuddled up in his arms, she decides she wants to stay with her uncle, mentally apologizing to her confused nanny. A brilliant idea sparks. If the Duke takes her, she can escape being sent to the temple with the Emperor's knights. It's a classic case of choosing the lesser of two evils. He may be cold, but he's better than the alternative. While Berg holds her, his purple-haired aide Grant notes that Willow's true nature seems hidden, but Shushu has a sudden, chilling thought. In a brief flash of memory, a pink-haired man holds a blood-soaked cloak, lamenting that it's a pitiful way to die. As Shushu offers him a lollipop, Berg looks on thoughtfully, the narration declaring the country is already rotting. Sucking on her lollipop, Shushu stares with wide, sparkling eyes, the picture of adorable innocence. "What did you say?" Berg asks, completely stunned, as she looks up at him and says the one word he never expected to hear. Kitanta. Berg reveals that not even the Emperor knows he's going to subjugate Kitanta, while a sinister, long-haired blonde man smirks, thinking there's one thing left to do. Perhaps she inherited a hidden power from the Willow family, as a mysterious veiled woman stands between two imposing knights. Realization dawns as Berg suddenly lifts a surprised Shushu into the air, a new light in his eyes. He stares at her with a serious, questioning expression, his mind racing. Shushu thinks she just saw her uncle join the stream, wondering about more profits, as a vision of a high-ranking imperial official appears in her mind. No way, he thinks. A fiery image of the fire dragon Kitanta burning in his mind. It can't be a coincidence. Who knows about subjugating Kitanta, he asks Grant, who confirms only they do, just as Shushu suddenly grabs a fistful of his red hair. Startled, he yelps, "Whoa, I'm scared!" which is all it takes for her to start hiccuping and bursting into tears. Holding the wailing baby, Berg notes she's lighter than a pony, while a flustered Grant blames the Duke for upsetting her. A flashback reveals his aides gossiping that the Duke is so emotionally distant, he didn't even hug his own son until he was 8 years old. Ah! In a fit of pique, Shushu dramatically tosses her lollipop away. Still sobbing, she giggles and tries to give the lollipop back to Berg, calling him "my darling." "Don't play with food," he says sternly, taking the candy from her. Clinging to him, she happily thinks she's seen her uncle again, while he just looks on with a question mark over his head. She recalls her past life, knowing the Emperor had a cruel scheme to sabotage the Kitanta subjugation, which involved multiple countries. Berg holds her close, thinking to himself that he can't believe she managed to catch his eye. He looks at her intensely, demanding to know who she talked to and telling her to look at him. She silently pleads with him not to get hurt this time, remembering his tragic death from the Emperor's interference. Berg turns to his green-haired aide, asking about the princess's contact with the Emperor. She nervously confirms it's only about once a month. With a grim look, Berg concludes the Emperor must know about his plans, meaning the operation has been leaked. His aides are in shock. A leak means a traitor. Berg wonders how the top-secret name Kitanta could have come from a 3-year-old princess. HMPH. Shushu recalls a memory of the Emperor standing over her defeated past self, coldly wondering who the traitor is. He looks down at the sleeping baby in his arms, a faint, protective smile gracing his lips. Turning to his aides, Berg gives a new order. He'll contact headquarters as soon as possible. In a shocking move, he tells Grant he's personally taking the princess to her temple and to get her things ready, leaving his aides speechless. "I'll take her first," he declares, but as he pulls her closer, Shushu wakes up in a panic, thinking, "Don't you dare take me away." Suddenly, a hand presents a whole bouquet of colorful lollipops, and Shushu's panic immediately turns to wide-eyed wonder. "You're right," she cheers, happily grabbing the candy, her tears instantly forgotten. Priorities, people. Berg makes a formal declaration. From now on, the House of Willow will protect the princess on her journey, and everyone will follow his orders. A system window pops up, showing Berg's status as he gazes down at Shushu with a look of intense focus. Another system notification reveals Berg's thoughts. He's been busy with work and finds her filthy but light. The scene shifts as 5 days pass, showing a peaceful, sunlit mountain landscape. Dressed in a blood-stained cloak and armor, Berg stands alone in the woods. She hasn't seen her uncle's face in 5 days. Back with her entourage, Shushu is being showered with snacks as they all compete for her attention. Surrounded by strawberries and flowers, she beams with joy, declaring, "I love it all." Her growing fan club watches on, completely mesmerized by her adorable loveliness, some even wearing 3D glasses and eating popcorn. Ding! A system alert reveals her general channel now has 21 participants, including a director named Ted, a knight named Dave, and a wizard named Lawton. The live chat shows Ted is completely overwhelmed by her cuteness, exclaiming, "I can't take it all!" Really? The chat gets chaotic as Lawton dramatically threatens Dave, who desperately pleads his innocence to the princess. This fan base is intense. The two fans are still overcome with emotion, asking about sponsorships and for her to share her thoughts. She may not understand everything, but Shushu basks in the affection, happy that so many people seem to like her. Meanwhile, a mysterious cloaked figure holding a staff makes their way through the woods. The scene cuts to a dark, empty, and ominous throne room. A man lies bleeding on the floor as a voice asks if he now understands that they've left the castle. A terrifying figure with long blonde hair and a dark mask, the Emperor, gives a chilling command. Catch the useless bastard. The mysterious cloaked figure decides to act right now, handing the tiny princess over to one of her entourage. Swoosh! Just as quickly, the purple-haired man snatches her back, leaving her attendant shouting in protest. A bright light flashes from his hand as he begins to cast a spell. Poof! In a shower of sparkles, he magically summons a perfect slice of strawberry shortcake, shocking Shushu. The purple-haired wizard, now with a hilarious two-headed chibi version, proudly offers the cake, and Shushu can only gasp. Cake! It's not just any cake. Either it's a sparkling, fresh strawberry cake, a specialty from the faraway city of Denba. Her other followers are stunned by the magic, and the wizard smugly tells them to quiet down unless they want to be wizards too. Hug me! One man cries out emotionally, as the wizard just grins and invites them closer. Ding! A system alert announces that Evna Wizard has joined the channel, as he boasts that they must devote their very souls to the princess. Evna pulls Shushu into a tight hug, his system message declaring everyone else is too dirty to even touch the princess. Shushu processes Evna's message, thinking that he's right about them, but she's definitely clean. She flashes back to her past life as a gamer, wondering why they call her a streamer, and hoping they can all talk later. Evna asks if she likes the cake, and she responds with a resounding tasty as she digs in with pure delight. While thinking the cake tastes good despite the filthy bastards around, Evna's grip loosens, and whoops! He drops her strawberry, the strawberry goes flying through the air, and lands perfectly on a fork, held by a stunned Duke Berg. Shushu looks completely innocent while Evna bursts into tears, begging the Duke not to punish his precious princess. He coolly asks what's going on, but his aides just start cheering that it's finally break time. Don't eat in a dusty place, he says, offering her the cake on his fork. She happily agrees. And just like that, the plate is licked clean. With her meal finished, Shushu declares it's time to hug her uncle, but he sternly tells her to sit and listen. That's not happening. She reaches out with grabby hands, demanding hugs. She reflects that, despite his stern exterior, her uncle is much better now. He's provided them with a new carriage, good meals, and even magic to prevent motion sickness. Shushu remembers her past life, where the cruel Imperial Knights wouldn't even feed her. Cuddling close to Nini, she decides the Duke is way better than the Imperial family and hopes her future will be just like this. Looking at her system window, she notices the Duke isn't in the chat and worries he's already lost interest. She tries offering him candy, but he just looks confused, reminding her he gave her a snack before heading off to his meal. A well-dressed, silver-haired man appears, greeting the princess with a message from the Duke and a glowing blue crystal. The crystal transforms, materializing into a glowing blue book. Shushu looks confused, but a strange symbol reflecting in her eye tells her she's seen this before. The book solidifies, revealing a regal red cover with a golden winged crest. This is the name book, a secret royal dictionary detailing the talents of gifted individuals across the land. This knowledge comes from a unique imperial ability, passed down for generations: the eyes that see talent. The power originated with the first emperor, who was blessed by the goddess Minerva, giving him his signature blonde hair. Since then, royals with blonde hair are most likely to inherit the talent, which is why Shushu, with her pink hair, doesn't have it. She remembers her uncle possessed a weak version of this ability, a dark silhouette of him filling her mind as she recalls everything. Berg looks down, a sudden understanding dawning on him as he says, "Yes, I see." A bloody memory surfaces. Her past self, writing furiously in a book to remember every detail. The memory ends with a grim satisfaction she later killed every single henchman whose name she wrote down. Back in the present, she looks at her uncle with fierce determination, thinking if she can just handle this right, maybe he'll finally take her to the estate. As someone holds the book, its glowing aura intensifies, the color turning darker. Shushu suddenly celebrates, thinking her forehead has grown up, while someone asks if she's seen what's inside. With a snap of his fingers, Berg commands her to look at him, the silver-haired man standing by. Ah! She gasps in delight, suddenly surrounded by a fantasy spread of cupcakes and cakes. Berg admits he needs information, revealing that the secret plan to suppress Katanta has been leaked. He asks her to identify anyone she recognizes from the people she's seen, showing her a glowing image of his silver-haired aide. Surrounded by her adoring, popcorn-eating fans, Shushu decides she only wants to live among people who like her. She agrees to tell him everything, and he offers a cake for every right answer, but her request to go to the estate for a cake sale is a no-go. They shake on it, with Berg promising unlimited cake coupons for her help, and she happily seals the deal. The silver-haired man then asks her to identify a glowing image of a man whom she instantly recognizes as one of the henchmen from her past. A painful memory surfaces of the same man manipulating and bullying her in her second life. She panics, suddenly desperate for them to believe her, insisting she's telling the truth. She tearfully recalls how no one ever listened to her before, terrified they'll dismiss her as a liar now. A gentle hand suddenly pats her head, catching her by surprise. Berg offers her a slice of chocolate cake, and her worries vanish as she giggles with delight. Problem solved. Standing by their elegant carriage, the silver-haired man asks for her final verdict on the person she identified. Surrounded by a glorious mountain of pastries, she smugly thinks this is more than enough proof of her value to her uncle. But a thought troubles her. Her answer is based on the future, which is different from the present world. Berg sighs in frustration, wondering what he's doing with a kid, while his aide reminds him that as the Duke of Willow, he must consider all possibilities. A woman with purple hair and a bun appears, informing the Duke they have one last person to identify, though he seems doubtful. The woman gently asks the princess to look at one final image, telling her not to overthink it. "I'm scared of it," she whispers, but meets their intense gazes with honesty. Sighing, Berg apologizes for the serious line of questioning and encourages her to tell him more. An image of a stern, white-haired man appears, and she instantly recognizes him with a gasp. He's the worst one. A dark memory reveals his past atrocities. A master schemer who slaughtered countless innocents, leaving a trail of fire and blood. With her head bowed, she confirms his identity with chilling certainty. The silver-haired man lights up, asking if it's really him, as Shushu nervously clarifies that this is a glimpse into a terrible future. She tries to explain just how evil he is, but Berg cuts her off with a sharp, commanding, "Stop." He turns away, coldly stating that her words are not worth listening to. The scene shifts, showing Berg with that same old vassal, furiously demanding to know if he is the one who did that. Terrified by his sudden rage, Shushu bursts into tears, begging him not to hurt her, as she fears he might be a bad guy after all. She buries her face in his shoulder, sobbing that she was wrong and couldn't keep her promise to be brave. The silver-haired man steps in, respectfully pointing out that the Duke was the one who asked for this information in the first place. Berg's anger fades into contemplation as he wonders if her knowledge is connected to that legendary ability. Shushu continues to cry, overwhelmed by fear and confusion. A rare power, passed down the Willow bloodline, is revealed, a mysterious talent for knowing the future that requires a pair to function. This power manifests as a prophet, who must be protected by a designated knight. The scene transitions to a bright, sunlit forest. Elsewhere, a young boy with dark purple hair trains relentlessly with a wooden sword. Exhausted and sweaty, he stands alone in the training yard, his determination unwavering. A close-up reveals his tired but focused purple eyes. Back with Shushu, Berg looks down at her, realizing there must be a prophet somewhere. For 200 years, no prophet has appeared, yet the knights born to defend them continue to be born with powerful elemental abilities. Without a prophet to guide them, these knights either go mad with power or are executed, a grim fate symbolized by a guillotine. The consequence is clear. They are destined to die young in battle. Berg rubs his temples, looking weary as he admits he doesn't remember the details. Crying in his arms, Shushu thinks to herself that there's nothing wrong with the princess. Suddenly, her entourage rushes in, led by a man apologizing for the interruption. Her fan club erupts in her defense, shouting that she's an innocent child and they can't think of her that way. "We watched her for 5 days," they cry out, fiercely loyal. Ding! The system window reappears, showing the list of people in her chat. In the chat, A distraught Ted passionately declares his belief in the princess's innocence. The chat goes wild as Dave sobs to his captain, while the wizard Evna threatens him. This fanbase is not messing around. She looks around, surprised and touched, realizing everyone is on her side. The wave of support is too much. She starts hiccuping through her tears, remembering a past life where she was always alone. Meanwhile, the purple-haired wizard, Evna, argues with another man, threatening to use truth magic and demanding a piggyback ride if he falls. Holding her close, one of her followers boldly declares, "Yes, I'm innocent. It's unfair," as the whole group rallies behind her. Wah, overcome with emotion, Shushu lets out a wail that echoes across the entire valley. Later, she sits puffy-eyed and swollen, stress eating her feelings away in a field of flowers. Just then, the purple-haired wizard, Evna, collapses, having used truth magic to confirm it. "Look, I am innocent." The red-haired Duke Berg and his men can only stare in stunned silence. Suddenly, her system chat explodes with outrage, her fan club calling the captain guilty and holding up signs to cheer her on. This fan base is ride or die. A single, deliberate step forward signals that the Duke is about to make his move. As he approaches, Shushu trembles in fear, bracing herself for whatever he is about to do. He looks down with a pained expression, admitting he only wanted to help because he felt sorry for her losing her life. But from her point of view, he is a terrifying shadow with glowing red eyes, and she cries out, "I am scared." The silver-haired aide quickly steps in, warning the Duke that his intense stare is causing a major misunderstanding. Realizing threats don't work on her, Berg looks down at the tense child, clearly stressed out by this whole situation. A moment later, a beautifully wrapped green gift box is presented to her, and her fear turns to curiosity. The aide explains that the Duke ordered the most popular limited edition dessert in the city, even using truth magic to prove it's safe. Shushu's mouth waters. It looks delicious. Berg confirms there is no poison, daring her to turn it down. She's not turning it down. "Give it to me," she demands. Already dreaming of the juice and cookies inside, she happily digs into a gorgeous fig tart, remembering it was her favorite food in her second life. Berg watches her, surprised, and asks if kids actually like figs, offering to bring her more. With her mouth full, she excitedly agrees, sealing the deal with a promise. All is forgiven. She reaches out with open arms, demanding hugging, while a teary-eyed aide watches from the background. And for the first time, a genuine, warm smile spreads across the Duke's face. He holds her close but playfully asks, "Am I your uncle?" A system window pops up, revealing a general channel of 113 people, with Berg as the only listed participant. The Duke's first message appears over a picture of them together. "Do you gain weight from eating too much? Ouch, dude." He sends the same message again, this time as he watches his attendants by the carriage. She beams up at him, happily declaring their reconciliation and suggesting he just buy the whole store for her next time. He messages that he has to eat 5 meals, and she decides that anyone who eats that well must be a good person. And so their journey continues, with 8 of the 15 days to the temple now behind them. As the carriage rolls along, she reflects that thanks to her new friends, she's not bored at all. Her follower Ted eagerly presents his gift, a cute bunny rattle. The competition is fierce, as Dave shows off his wooden sculpture, while Evna dismisses their crude items. The purple-haired man with cat ears scoffs, pointing out that rattles are for babies. Surrounded by a mountain of presents, she fondly recalls the names of her new fan club, Ted, Dave, Isaac, and the whole crew. She melts Ted's heart by sweetly telling him she'll play with his rattle. With an adorable wink, she poses with the rattle, causing him to break down in tears, convinced he's seen an angel. Overcome with emotion, Ted starts punching a tree, vowing to have a child just like her, leaving Shushu utterly confused. Her followers get into a chaotic gift-off, offering everything from a boomerang to a knife, until Evna declares that magic is the new trend. A new chat message from Ted appears. He'd let her bite him if she were a mosquito. An idea she finds absolutely repulsive. The chat logs reveal the depths of their devotion, from hating sentry duty without her to wishing she were their granddaughter. One fan, Halo, even fought the wizard at the post office for the right to send her his heart. Now that's commitment. Halo's final verdict? The princess isn't just kind, she's an absolute angel. Looking at her system window, Shushu notes that Halo is definitely the most active fan, though the glitchy text is a little creepy. With a pile of gifts at her feet, a voice suddenly announces that it's time for her fans to go train. Two of her followers wave a reluctant goodbye, promising to return after their training. As the first-ranked subjugation squad, they're off to fight a fire dragon, leaving Shushu alone with Nini for a while. She studies a window showing Halo's profile, realizing she can only see their dialogue. It clicks. This isn't a chat window. It's basically a YouTube comment section for her life. She wonders how she's supposed to interact with them through this one-way system. A warm smile spreads across her face as she decides she wants to find a way to give something back to them. Ding! A system notification announces her rank as a, quote, Dimension streamer has risen to Junior Baron. And with her level up comes a new reward, a mysterious buff called Unexpected Luck. Her eyes widen in surprise as a single thought appears. Level up? A glowing blue system window materializes before her, and she stares in utter amazement. A mysterious, faceless official in a purple uniform ponders her new, unique class, Junior Baron. Her nanny, Nini, holds her close, warning her that the glowing window is dangerous, but Shushu has no idea what it is. Nini makes Shushu promise to only have one treat before dinner, and the little princess happily agrees. Unseen by them, a monstrous shadow with glowing red eyes watches from the bushes. Roar! A massive beast bursts from the forest, sending her followers reeling in shock. Chaos erupts as Nini shields Shushu from the terrifying creature. Held tightly, Shushu's eyes fill with terror as she recognizes the sound of a monster. A horrifying purple werewolf with a single, demonic red eye lets out a blood-curdling howl. The captain of the guard orders his men to kill the werewolves, and an archer takes aim. But before they can act, the red-haired Duke Berg flies past them, a blur of motion and power. With blood splattering his face, Berg's eyes burn with cold, deadly focus. With a swift, brutal slash of his sword, he cuts down the beast in a single blow. He stands over the fallen monster, his clothes and sword drenched in its blood. The ferocious werewolf is instantly silenced. As another monster lunges, Berg calmly orders it into the carriage, a truly final destination. A flash of red signals another swift, violent end. Their carriage waits, a silent witness to the carnage unfolding just beyond the trees. Shaken, Nini clutches the princess tightly, trying to shield her from the horror. Nini encourages her to be brave for the fighting knights, and Shushu gives a determined little, okay, but the fight isn't over, as a monster's demonic eyes reflect in the carriage window. A clawed arm smashes against the carriage, sending a monster flying back as Shushu gasps in shock. Ah! The force of the attack sends her tumbling through the air. A dark tendril wraps around her mid-fall as someone screams her name. The entire carriage is launched into the sky by the sheer force of the attack. It smashes back down to earth, shattering into pieces. Her bonnet lies abandoned in the grass, while the blood-soaked Duke cradles her safely in his arms. Her eyes flutter open, and she calls out weakly to her uncle. Berg stands victorious over the dead beast, holding Shushu as his men watch, and thinks to himself how scared he must be. The remaining werewolves are swiftly dispatched by a volley of arrows, ending the ambush. She asks to see, but he gently covers her eyes, telling her the gruesome scene is not worth looking at. He calmly states that his knights would handle a poisoned foe without hesitation, as someone asks if he means they should just relax. Shushu starts to cry, telling him she's scared, but he just stares ahead grimly. He reports that all the enemies are dead, a fact that shocks Shushu to her core. Berg remains silent, his expression unreadable as he holds her close. Ding! A new system notification shows a list of 18 participants now following her journey, including the Duke and Nini. The system log reveals Berg's thoughts. He notes her fear of the monster's body and calls her weak. He then adds a final, moody thought, I'm not like other boys. Spoken like a true edgelord, she puffs out her cheeks in fury, insisting she was scared even as he questions her sudden bravery. She accuses him of getting angry at her, but he can't even remember when, while she steams with frustration. She remembers him looking like he wanted to kill her, and the memory makes her pout. She hides her face, letting out a small cry as he watches her, a fresh scar on his cheek. He dryly remarks that she played with about 5 werewolves, and she peeks through her fingers in surprise. He notes she even caught 2 children, while she thinks about her mother, the queen. A flashback reveals the legend of the Duke of Wallow, whose ancestor was a dragon-blooded warrior famed for her swordsmanship. The Duke realizes her powers are likely tied to her royal bloodline, thinking, I see what you are thinking. He gently tells the princess that the danger has passed and everything is handled. Nini rushes forward in tears, crying out for the princess and asking if she was scared. She collapses to the ground, pulling Shushu into a desperate, relieved hug, telling her it's all over. The little pink-haired princess is offered a mountain of candy, her eyes welling up with joyful tears. A man in a black cloak rests after a battle, as a narrator explains that for legendary dragon slayers, a simple werewolf is no big deal. He reflects on how difficult the journey must have been for someone so small. The princess beams, offering a candy to her protector and thanking him for keeping her safe. Wow! Her simple kindness completely breaks him, and he starts bawling her title like a total fanboy. She shares her treats with her other followers, a teal-haired man named Mia and a hooded figure, who are both deeply moved by her gratitude. She continues handing out candy, spreading joy and sweetness to her adoring protectors. Leaning in close, the princess whispers to Evina, promising her an even prettier candy just for her. Evina is so overwhelmed she bursts into tears, shouting her adoration, and the princess is stunned to see her exact words pop up in a chat window. Her attention then turns to a battle-worn, red-haired man with a cut on his face. He tells her he likes it, so she adorably offers him a sparkly red candy in return. Blushing, she shyly explains that the candy is a thank you gift for saving her. He smirks as he accepts the treat, recognizing that her gratitude is a true mark of the Wallow family. Her eyes fill with tears as a powerful, hopeful thought begins to form in her mind. Watching her kind followers, she desperately wishes she could stay with these wonderful people forever. Cuddling close, she makes her decision, happily declaring she'll become a Wallow to live with the people she loves. Hearing her heartfelt declaration, the red-haired man watches her with a soft, knowing smile. She reaches out her tiny hand toward him, finally calling him uncle. But the tender moment is shattered when a silver-haired man rushes in, yelling that something has happened. He reports that while the werewolves are dealt with, their leader has now appeared, a monstrous, shadowy beast with glowing red X's for eyes. Her uncle is stunned, realizing with horror that they're now facing the legendary king of werewolves. The silver-haired man nervously explains the Wolf King was carrying something in its mouth, a mysterious bundle wrapped in red cloth. He calls it the child, and just as he does, a tiny fox ear twitches and pokes out of the bundle. Suddenly, a tiny desert fox with a red gem on its head bursts out of the cloth, screaming its head off and startling the princess. The feisty fox kicks and struggles, demanding the ordinary people release it immediately. It puffs out its chest with a defiant, "Huh!" leaving everyone completely bewildered by the tiny, talking creature. "Unhand me, you mortals!" The tiny fox continues to yell, still fighting against its captor. The man wonders why a white desert fox is here, while the creature itself looks utterly unimpressed, letting out a tiny yawn. He continues to puzzle over the creature's origin, questioning if this is even its natural habitat. The fox spots the uncle's injury and asks what it is, but then gets offended, thinking he's referring to its own great body. The princess asks her uncle if he heard the fox talk, but he just hears angry barking as the little creature throws a tantrum. Covering her mouth, she realizes with a jolt that she might be the only one who can actually understand it. The silver-haired man asks the Duke if he should continue his report, and he coolly grants permission while the fox glares daggers. He explains that the creature was found inside the Wolf King's mouth, and was initially mistaken for just an ordinary animal. But as a divine golden aura surrounds it, he reveals his stunning conclusion. It's a divine beast. The Duke and the princess stare in disbelief at the tiny fox, both echoing his words. A divine beast? The man confirms it, stating that he and the knights witnessed its incredible power firsthand. A divine beast, as the name implies, is a sacred creature that directly serves the gods. The Duke presses him, asking if he's sure, and the silver-haired man confirms it's the undeniable truth. He adds that divine beasts are drawn to lost relics in sacred places, a grim detail given the bloody carnage around them. Before the Duke can react, the tiny fox puffs up its chest and demands, "Now that you know who I am, serve me." Another man nervously suggests reporting this to the royals, but he's immediately warned that they would just accuse him of trying to steal the beast. A dark energy surrounds him as he realizes he'd be framed as a thief by the cunning royal family. The Duke wastes no time, swiftly ordering a mage to incinerate the werewolf corpses and erase all evidence. A flashback reveals just how chaotic the fox's capture was. It took 5 knights and even powerful mages to subdue the tiny but mighty beast. A beautiful vision flashes by, showing a grown-up princess alongside a magnificent, fully grown divine beast in a garden of roses. Back in the present, the men recall the legend. A divine beast serves only one master, but how to form that bond is a complete mystery. A silent, meaningful moment passes as the little princess and the tiny divine fox lock eyes. The men decide it's time to leave, but the princess isn't having it, yelling for them to stop right there. She freezes, a shocking realization hitting her as she looks at the fox. It's not just an animal, it's a human child. Her eyes widen in shock as she realizes what's happening. "What?" she gasps. A small, yellow fox-like creature smirks up at her, asking telepathically if she can hear what it said. As a man in a dark cloak holds the creature, an image of a blissfully happy, pink-haired child appears, reflecting her inner joy. Her eyes sparkle with a new mission. She points the scarred, red-haired duke and asks for a hug. Nope. The silver-haired aide flatly denies her request, leaving Shushu utterly crestfallen. But her sadness vanishes when the divine beast starts grooming its magnificent, fluffy tail, and she's instantly captivated. She turns to the duke, desperately pleading, "Just once! Let me touch it once." But he coldly refuses. Sniff. Her heart breaks as she thinks, "I want to touch the tail of the divine beast." The silver-haired aide alerts the duke that the creature has suddenly stopped screaming and resisting. A glimmer of hope appears in her eyes. Maybe just sitting next to it would be okay. A voice from the trees simply says, "Ah, yes," granting her silent wish. Success! Shushu ecstatically cuddles the divine beast, but as her hand nears its mouth, a guard warns her it might bite. The other followers gasp in amazement as she fearlessly puts her hand near its mouth, wanting to see its divine teeth. She pets the creature's head, overjoyed by how soft it is, while the beast just grimaces and bears it. Two followers whisper in shock, recalling that the divine beast only allows its owner to touch it, just as Shushu leans in for a hug with the duke. Kiang! With a flash of its eyes and a pounce of its paws, the divine beast lets out a cry as a powerful light erupts. The creature looks at her with newfound understanding, declaring, "Sure enough, you are a human child." A moment of transition before the story continues. As Shushu walks off, hugging her new friend, a follower asks in disbelief if the princess really just hugged it. Her aides can only stare, dumbfounded by what they just witnessed. "What?" one of them mutters. Peeking over the creature's head, Shushu excitedly confirms its thoughts. That's right. The divine beast's eyes sparkle as it asks a critical question. "You are the one chosen by God, right?" She ponders God's choice, flashing back to a memory of herself as a baby reaching for a divine figure. In a heartwarming moment, the divine beast gives her an affectionate lick on the cheek. A brilliant, magical light begins to swirl around them. She holds the glowing creature close, wrapped in a serene, blue aura. The light materializes into a beautiful gift bag, decorated with pink bunnies and a large ribbon. She stares at the mysterious gift, her mind racing. A system window reveals her new skill, a child's innocence, a gift from God that lets her talk to animals, confirming she's God's messenger. The realization hits her hard. She stares at the creature and asks, "Wait, can you hear my thoughts?" A formal portrait shows the divine beast in all its glory, revealing its multiple tails. A card introduces the creature as Rixia, God's messenger, while a chained shadow with glowing red eyes vows to wash away its sins. Rixia explains that meeting someone like her is a form of help, and Shushu happily agrees. She clutches Rixia tightly, ready to face whatever comes next with her new companion. Her followers are in an uproar, with the silver-haired aide confirming he saw it all. The princess has tamed the divine beast. She blushes, wondering to herself if touching a divine beast automatically makes you its owner. Her system window alerts her that her followers have grown to 40 participants, including knights and a mage. Her fan chat explodes with praise. Mia celebrates her new taming skill, Ted calls her breathtaking, and Landell coins a new equation, adorable, deadly. Ivana sends a message telling her she's frowning, then strikes a cute pose to demonstrate a much clearer, happier expression. Surrounded by floating hearts, Shushu looks a little dazed by all the sudden affection. As her fans crowd in, Rixia starts shouting for the little human girl's attention. Feeling smothered, Rixia panics and yells, "Too many people. Tell them to go away." The mob of adoring fans presses in, making her dizzy and overwhelmed. A commanding voice cuts through the chaos, ordering everyone to stay in place, and the crowd instantly freezes. Duke Berg appears, his expression lethal. He threatens his men. If they breathe a word of what they saw, he'll gouge their eyes out. They quickly agree. He doubles down on his threat, promising to blind and deafen them before they reach the city. The message is received loud and clear. Hiding behind Shushu, Rixia nervously asks if the terrifying man is her guardian. Rixia calls her uncle strong and uneducated as a terrifying dark aura with glowing red eyes erupts from Berg's silhouette. A vision of the Duke in full armor reminds everyone that he once slew the most evil monster, the Black Dragon. He's not just talk. Rixia tries to get her attention, but Shushu proudly states her name. Rixia seems to correct her etiquette, leaving her confused about being an owner. Shushu suddenly declares that from the moment she touched Rixia, it became her master, immediately wondering where that thought even came from. With a sparkle in her eye, she happily accepts her new role and pulls her fluffy new master into a big hug. 2 days later, their convoy of carriages continues its steady journey through the wooded countryside. The large wooden wheels of the carriage rumble along the dirt road. Bouncing along inside, Shushu silently complains that her feet are starting to go numb. Rixia throws a fit in the Duke's arms, demanding he let go, while Shushu just sighs, bored of having to sit still. Kia! Rixia lets out a piercing shriek, but the Duke remains completely unfazed. He continues to stare forward, his stoic expression giving nothing away. She looks up at him, her big green eyes full of innocent curiosity. Pang! A loud crack echoes from outside as one of the carriages breaks down. Her aide cheerfully directs her to the Duke's fancy carriage, explaining it was specially made by nannies and magicians. Nini leans in and whispers, asking the princess to tell her immediately if she's even the slightest bit uncomfortable with the arrangement. Normally, only family or servants are allowed in the Duke's carriage, but he's making a rare exception. As they ride on together, their journey takes them toward a grand palatial city. She studies a map and is shocked to realize they're only 5 days away from the central city. The past few days have been a happy blur of eating and sleeping, surrounded by her doting new followers. Back in the present, Rixia dramatically accuses her of abandonment as Shushu playfully tugs its tail. Shushu's eyes fill with tears as Rixia worries they're about to be abandoned all over again. Rixia asks if she likes the strange person enough to want to stay with him forever, and she enthusiastically agrees. Rixia suggests her plan should be to seduce him, an idea that makes the Duke wonder how exactly she'd pull that off. The Duke declares no more candy for now, but promises he'll keep his word once they arrive in the city. He clarifies his promise. She can eat all the figs she wants, right until she's ready to burst. Her eyes turn to sparkling stars as she imagines a glorious feast of fig-based desserts. The Duke offers her a day off for sightseeing, which she ecstatically accepts, while Rixia insists on tagging along. He confirms she wants to go sightseeing, only to immediately shut her down, claiming he's too busy with work. She gets right in his face, her eyes literally screaming, "Promise!" as she demands he go with her. After a moment of silent consideration, he finally relents, saying he'll think about it. Victory! She and Rixia erupt in a joyful cheer. He allows it, thinking it's fine since it's just before their goodbyes, a thought that casts a sudden dark shadow over her happiness. Half a day later, their convoy finally pulls up to the massive gates of a fortified city. She glances over at the Duke, seeing him as a cold, distant iceberg of a man. Elsewhere, a fluffy pink creature fishes a strange red blob with a face out of a stream. Poof! The red blobs suddenly multiply, and the pink creature panics, realizing this is a much bigger problem than it thought. A flashback reveals her past life as a streamer, confident behind a screen but crippled by social anxiety in real life. Her memory shifts to a mysterious veiled woman with flowing white hair. She recalls her painful second life as the worst emperor, a past she tries desperately to forget. Though surrounded by deceitful courtiers, she remembers there were a few good people, like Nini, who supported her until the end. Among those loyal to her were the royal guards. But she most vividly remembers a young manager who stood by her when a riot broke out and the entire city had turned against her. As the imperial castle burned, and even the servants despised her, it was this young manager who came to her side. Peeking around a corner, her past self is startled by a group of men gathered in a brightly lit hall. As a man shouts that it's impolite to challenge the emperor, she wonders if the emperor was truly to blame for the injustices. The memory brings back the overwhelming sorrow of her past. She recalls the man who defended her but frustratingly realizes she never saw his face. Her life ended tragically, when rebels seized power and sentenced her to death by guillotine as a mob screamed for blood. In her final moments, she recalled the manager's words, her only regret being that she never got to see his face. A furious rebel screams the final order, "Go to death!" A bloody slash marks a violent end to her tragic past life. The scene shifts to a grand medieval city as their convoy finally arrives. Now in a new life, Shushu vows to live differently, eagerly awaiting her chance to change her fate. Her thoughts drift to the kind manager from her past, hoping she'll see his face one day. Pulled back to the present, she tells Rixia her plan. Find a way to stay with the Duke, no matter what. Rixia cheers, dreaming of endless feast and riches if its new master lives a life of luxury. With time running out, she steels her resolve to win him over, her determination ignited by the dazzling city before her. Just hours earlier, her aide had pointed out a toy store, sparking an unfamiliar excitement in her. The city's charming, festive streets welcome them. She realizes with a pang of sadness that she's never even seen a toy before. A striking man with red hair asks if that's all, but her excited babbling about toys and sweets just leaves him baffled. The red-haired man ponders her strange but adorable behavior. A system alert pops up. Berg is intrigued, wondering why she's nothing like his own sons, and her interest points go up. Elsewhere, a clandestine meeting takes place, with a dark-haired man questioning an order to send a doctor. The atmosphere is tense as three young men share a worried look over their meal. Suddenly, her aide bursts in, announcing he's found a doctor for the Duke. He shoves a terrified old man forward, praising him as the best doctor in the region. The doctor sits stiffly at a desk, ready to lay down the law. He huffily declares that he doesn't make house calls for outsiders. He continues his refusal, unimpressed by the offer of money, until he sees the size of the bag. Ka-ching. A bag overflowing with gold coins is all the convincing he needs. His principles vanishing in a flash, the doctor now insists they absolutely must go see the patient. But his newfound bravery evaporates when he sees Berg's terrifying aura, muttering about scary monsters. He's seen underworld thugs, but nothing compares to the bone-chilling presence of this nobleman. Berg cuts to the chase, ordering the doctor to treat her immediately, and everyone scrambles to obey. Meanwhile, the patient in question, Shushu, is sleeping like an angel. The doctor sweats bullets under the death stares of her followers, wishing he could just go home. After the checkup, he carelessly asks who this person is, earning a sharp slap from Berg for his disrespect to the princess. Nini gently intervenes, confirming the doctor's assessment. The princess is just fine and fast asleep. But her fans aren't having it. They erupt in outrage, claiming she breathes every 3 seconds and summoning a giant bear. Fan culture is wild. Berg still seems concerned, asking how she can sleep so deeply. The doctor and Nini reassure him it's perfectly normal for a child. He grumbles that his own son isn't like this, but begrudgingly accepts that being sick isn't a crime. The aide reports that detouring to the next city for a better doctor will throw off their entire schedule. Without hesitation, Berg makes a decision that shocks his men. Change the schedule. The aide can't believe it. The Duke is actually altering his rigid plans for the sleeping princess. Nine watches him, realizing he's completely unaware of how much he's starting to care. A young mage with blue hair steps up, passionately offering to kidnap her, bring the doctor along using a portal. Berg considers the bold offer with his usual stoic expression. He turns to the mage, impatiently asking why he hasn't started the spell yet. The mage's face lights up, realizing he's just been given the green light. He grabs his companion and bolts, ready to cast the spell on the move. He calls upon his power, his staff glowing as he asks for help to aid the princess. A massive, swirling magic circle erupts beneath them, crackling with teleportation energy. His friend panics, grabbing onto him as the world around them dissolves into light. In a flash of magic, a spoon materializes and floats over the sleeping princess. Berg gently leans over Shushu, his expression softening as he watches her sleep. She sleeps on, completely undisturbed by the magical chaos unfolding around her. Berg's gaze is fixed on her, a silent guardian watching over his new charge. The residual energy of the portal spell glows brightly on the stone floor. His decision made, Berg orders his followers to find the princess the finest room available. They snap to attention, ready to obey. In a lavish room, a voice apologizes to the Duke, admitting the city they're in isn't very grand. The scene focuses on a precious, pink-haired baby sleeping soundly, declaring her the best thing there. The red-haired Duke learns the grim news. The baby has constant cold sweats, and healing magic is too risky to use on someone so young. The Duke's temper flares as he demands to know why the room isn't warmer yet. The brown-haired man nervously explains that the wizard squad is working on it, but the north wind is making it difficult. A woman with purple hair looks on in shock, wondering if the princess is just exhausted. Beside the sleeping princess, a small, white, fox-like creature suddenly appears, its eyes opening. The mysterious creature watches as the ornate double doors to the room stand slightly ajar. Outside, 3 followers whisper. A pink-haired man says the doctor confirmed it's okay, but a black-haired man tells the green-haired one to hush because the leader ordered it. The Duke watches his followers quietly gather, their concern for the princess filling the room. A soft whimper escapes the sleeping princess's lips as she shifts in her sleep. The Duke looks on with a soft, caring expression, his worry evident in his eyes. A beautiful memory flashes by of a smiling blonde man and a red-haired woman reaching for her tiny hand. The princess stirs again, her peaceful sleep disturbed by whatever troubles her. The Duke gently lifts the sleeping baby into his arms, holding her close with a protective air. He looks down at her with a determined gaze, a subtle smile playing on his lips as he clenches his fist. Later, a doctor confirms to a woman named Evana that the princess is simply sleeping, a classic case of an overprotective family. The doctor's voiceover explains it was obvious the princess was just exhausted and had fallen into a deep sleep. He tells the Duke that a long trip is tough on kids, but a dark memory reveals Shu has already endured a life far worse than they could imagine. The Duke just says, "Really?" his stoic response earning him adoring looks from his starstruck followers. One of the men erupts with joy, celebrating that the princess wasn't actually sick. 2 maids congratulate Evana, telling her she did a great job caring for the princess. A man in a white robe has dramatically fainted, and another follower calmly asks for someone to help him up. A follower steps forward, asking to have a private word with the Duke. As night falls, the princess's weary followers are seen resting peacefully. The rest is cut short, as the schedule suddenly changes, forcing the Duke into an unexpected meeting. But thanks to the sleeping princess, everyone gets a day off, and 2 of her followers cheer, calling it a blessing. The peace is broken when a man bursts in with an urgent report about someone named Aiden, leaving the Duke to wonder what trouble he's in now. A profile reveals Aiden, a serious-looking boy with dark hair, is the Duke's one and only student. Turns out, during training, Aiden accidentally demolished a city wall with his power, and he notes the damage is even bigger this time. The Duke considers Aiden's immense power, deciding to leave the wall as is until he can deal with it personally. A formal portrait introduces Mowgli Wallow, the silhouetted first child of the Duke. The Duke sits in thought as his loyal followers wait for his command. His men gush over the princess, declaring that her smile alone makes them happy and that this day off is all thanks to her. One man is brought to tears, dramatically proclaiming he served the captain for over a decade, without ever getting a break until now. A teal-haired woman brings up a sensitive topic, asking if anyone else sees the strong resemblance between the princess and the Duke of Wallow's bloodline. We're introduced to the legendary Scarlet Wallow, the previous Duke, the current Duke's sister, and Shu's mother. A flashback shows Scarlet raising her sword to a roaring crowd, hailed as a legendary hero who would have changed the world if she had lived. The teal-haired woman swoons, convinced the bloodline is undeniable, and that the princess will grow up to be even more beautiful than her legendary mother. A beautiful vision of a grown-up princess with flowing pink hair fills the screen. The vision continues, promising that she will become famous throughout the entire mainland. Back in the quiet room, a purple-haired woman sits vigil by the sleeping princess's bedside. She looks up, confused, as the Duke tells her to take a break while he takes over watch duty. Wham! She jolts in surprise, stammering that the Duke is the one who should be resting. She finally relents with a bow, entrusting the princess to his care. As she leaves, she thinks to herself that the tender look in the Duke's eyes as he gazed at the princess was unmistakable. The Duke sits by the princess's bed, his growing affection for her becoming clearer with each passing day. One of the maids bids the Duke farewell as she quietly exits the room. The door clicks shut, leaving the Duke alone in the moonlit room with his sleeping niece. Staring at the closed door, the Duke has a profound thought, wondering if he might actually be a prophet. The red-haired man stares intently, thinking that the child's timing for bringing up the Attica conquest is far too coincidental. A close-up shows the sweet, innocent face of the pink-haired princess. He reasons that if she's a prophet, she must be taken away, recalling how the emperor killed everyone in a coup but mysteriously saved only this child. A tragic flashback shows the little girl clutching a dying, blonde-haired man covered in blood. He wonders if it was because of her that Aiden died, just like her sister. He weighs his options. If she's not a prophet, she's useless and will only cause conflict, and the North isn't ready for war with the Emperor. In another memory, the blood-splattered man gently holds the baby princess in his arms. Back in the present, he sits up in bed, lost in thought. A new day begins as sunlight streams through the window. The little princess lets out a massive yawn, stretching as she wakes up. She sleepily rubs her eyes, trying to get her bearings. Her eyes pop open as she notices the ornate ceiling, wondering why it looks so different. She sits up in a panic, struck by the horrifying thought. Could I have been reincarnated again? She frantically looks around the unfamiliar room, trying to figure out where she is. Flopping back onto the pillow, she tries to process her new reality. A woman with purplish hair enters, asking if the princess slept well, and she immediately recognizes her as Nini. Nini leans over the bed, asking where she is, then jumps back, saying she startled herself. Nini explains that because the princess suddenly fell asleep, the Duke arranged for a place for her to stay. The narration explains their mission was urgent: destroy Ataita at the temple without a moment's delay. Nini finishes explaining that the Duke prepared this comfortable room just so the princess could rest well. A memory of the red-haired man flashes through her mind as she wonders if it's really him, her uncle. Nini says a little fox was also waiting for her, and the princess happily cuddles the creature, loving how quiet it is. But the peace is broken when the fox screams for rice, making the princess realize this is not a warm welcome at all. The princess looks on, completely unimpressed, as the fox continues complaining about being hungry. The little fox proudly declares that it's starving because it refuses to eat. It explains its fear of being poisoned, but the princess assures it that her companions would never do such a thing. A dark flashback reveals the fox's trauma, being captured by humans who wanted to sell or dissect it. It tearfully declares that it wouldn't have eaten anything unless its master was the one feeding it. The princess looks at the little creature with a newfound understanding in her eyes. She realizes the fox has been hurt for a long time, just like she has. With a gentle smile, she looks at the fox and says, "Okay, let's eat." The scene shifts to the outside of a large, tavern-like building. Inside, her followers gasp in surprise. Whoa! Nine is holding the princess, who announces she's fine now, much to her followers' relief. A chaotic scene erupts as her followers shove each other out of the way, desperately offering her candy and fresh cream puffs. Overwhelmed by the food, the princess asks if it's all for her, and her followers enthusiastically shout, "Yes." She beams with pure joy, thanking everyone for their kindness. Her followers are practically worshiping her, calling her adorable, but she bashfully tells them to stop. Her face lights up with a happy little gasp. The Duke strides into the room looking sharp, and she calls out, "Uncle." She watches him walk by, a curious, "Oh?" on her mind. He completely ignores his men and announces he'll be having breakfast with her in the room, leaving them stunned. His followers are devastated, crying out that the princess was supposed to eat with them. But the Duke simply gives them a smug little smirk, clearly enjoying their suffering. He orders Rubes to take all the presents they brought and stuff them in the carriage's luggage compartment. With that, the door slams shut, leaving the heartbroken followers behind. One of her followers collapses in tears, while his friend tries to comfort him, admitting the ugly truth. They can't win against the Duke. The Duke calmly walks across the sunlit courtyard, leaving the drama behind him. Whoa! The princess sits at a grand table laden with food, happily digging in as her uncle tells her to eat up. He then informs her they'll go visit the city after their meal, catching her completely by surprise. She thinks back to the day before, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she remembers visiting a toy store for the first time. In the present, she messily devours a meal, while her aide, Nini, watches in stunned silence. Berg watches her, a thoughtful and slightly puzzled expression on his face. Wah! Lifted high in the air, she gazes in utter awe at the magnificent castle before them. She thought they were just going for a walk, but the whispers of the maids make her realize something more is happening. Carried by Berg, she's overwhelmed, wondering why a huge crowd is following them. Meanwhile, Nini points out a beautiful flower shop to distract her. Her followers shower her with gifts, from adorable octopus plushies to a sparkling jeweled scepter. The blue-haired mage conjures a shimmering, rainbow-colored bubble with a flick of his wrist. He smiles, presenting the magical bubbles to the delighted princess. Their sightseeing tour takes them through the charming, sunlit streets of the medieval city. Suddenly, she spots something in a shop window and points excitedly, demanding that Nini get her go! Her prize, an ornate, white and red helmet gleaming on a wooden stand. Nini is aghast, covering his mouth in tears as he questions how she could possibly want to buy such a thing. A dark memory surfaces of her second life, where rebels brutally executed her, a death she still feels was needlessly cruel. As her past self lies slain, she recalls always imagining the grand helmet that was kept in the Emperor's room. Back in the present, Berg sets her down, and she toddles determinedly toward the display. She peeks over the counter, her eyes wide with wonder as she stares at the helmet. Rixia pops up, praising her excellent taste, and noting that such a fine helmet seems completely out of place here. She curiously asks Rixia if the helmet is tough. Rixia finds the question silly, thinking that durability is the whole point of a helmet, as Shushu's eyes lock onto her prize. Surrounded by a flurry of money, she declares, "Nani, I want it," while Rixia frantically urges a quick payment. She playfully places a toy crown on her head, announcing she'll wear her new prize just like this. One of her followers, Arthura, blushes at her cuteness and wonders aloud if he should also wear this. But a green-haired companion quickly shuts him down, threateningly asking if he wants to die for imitating the princess. The aide, Rubes, tells the Duke to just buy it, warning him to be careful as it's the same type of helmet he used to wear. Rubes marvels at how she picked the one true helmet from the display, which belonged to the previous Duke, Scarlet, as Berg finally asks if she truly wants it. Her eyes fill with hopeful tears as she looks up and asks him, "Will you buy it for me?" Berg is taken aback and asks why she chose that one, while she panics internally, knowing she can't explain her past life memories. She puts on her most innocent and charming smile, hoping to win him over without an explanation. He gazes down at her, his expression intense as he considers her strange request. The scene shifts to a bright, sunny day, with birds soaring through the sky. A flashback begins, showing a young Berg training fiercely with a woman in the legendary helmet. Thwack! He's disarmed and sent tumbling to the ground. Exhausted, he calls for a break while the warrior in the helmet looks down on him. The warrior removes her helmet, revealing herself to be Scarlet Wallow, Shushu's mother. Scarlet playfully teases a pouting young Berg, calling him weak and questioning his ability to survive in a real war. He ignores the taunt, instead asking why she brought the special helmet with her. He examines the helmet, noting its beauty, but cynically adding that she has no skill to wield it properly. He continues to mock her, offering to lend her his ugly hat if she's jealous, but she simply addresses him calmly. "All right, Berg." She holds the helmet lovingly, admitting that she really likes it. Looking at the determined young boy, she tells him that one day he too will understand the heart of a warrior. The memory fades as Shushu's voice pulls the present-day Berg back, calling out, "Uncle!" He turns, dismissing her question with a simple, "No, nothing," leaving her to look up at him in confusion. Their journey continues as they arrive in a bustling town square with a beautiful fountain. She gasps in delight as they enter a pastry shop filled with treats, declaring it to be heaven while the chef warmly welcomes them. She excitedly points out all the desserts to Nini, who gently tries to limit her to just 2 choices. The horror! Being forced to choose just 2 sends her into a comical spiral of despair. But Berg steps in, overriding Nini with a simple command to the staff. "Pack these all for me." He coolly orders his aide, Rubes, to pay for the mountain of sweets. Rubes happily steps up to the counter, ready to buy out the entire shop for the princess. The chef and princess stare in wide-eyed wonder as Rubes opens a briefcase overflowing with cash, proving that money can, in fact, buy happiness. Wearing a new flower crown, she beams with joy, declaring that Berg is the absolute best. Holding her bag of treats, she thinks fondly of him, realizing he's a man who always keeps his promises. Their journey takes them to a quaint village, the last stop before the temple, where someone feels the pressure to please their master. In a sweet gesture, Shushu offers Berg a bite of her strawberry cake, simply telling him to eat. Suddenly, a small, fox-like creature appears, declaring it has a better plan. Berg looks completely flustered as the little princess leans in to feed him. She happily pushes the cake-laden fork toward his mouth, but he's sweating, clearly not ready for this level of cuteness. His eyes widen in sudden shock as he jerks back. Splat! The precious cake hits the stone ground in a tragic, creamy explosion. The camera lingers on the heartbreaking sight of the ruined dessert. Her followers gasp in horror as Rubes calls out to the Duke. The aide points out the obvious: the cake the princess offered him is now on the floor. Shushu's eyes fill with tears as the horrible realization dawns on her. He threw her gift away. The crowd, however, didn't see it as an accident. To them, it looked like a deliberate rejection. The fallen cake lies on the ground, a symbol of broken dreams and wasted sugar. Her little face crumples as tears stream from her wide, devastated eyes. One of her followers, Ted, is so distraught he drops to the ground to salvage the cake, earning a sharp rebuke from his friend. Absolute chaos breaks out as Ted tries to eat the cake off the pavement while his friends try to stop the madness. Fan culture is a wild ride. As a shadowy figure approaches, Berg quickly scoops up the crying princess to make a swift exit. He turns away from the scene, trying to shield her, but she looks back with a heartbroken expression. Now in Nini's arms, she buries her face in his shoulder, sadly thinking that maybe Berg just didn't like her gift. She quietly tries to hold back her sobs, which, as the narration notes, is even more heart-wrenching than a loud cry. Berg watches from a distance, his face etched with regret as he realizes how much he's hurt her. His aide approaches, thinking the Duke is being a bit dramatic, but also suspecting he made a genuine mistake. The scene shifts back to the pastry shop, where the chef is hard at work. An intense Berg marches back in and demands more fig cakes, shocking the poor chef, who warns him of the steep price. But money isn't the problem, the chef explains. He only makes one specialty cake per day, much to Berg's annoyance. Meanwhile, a kind woman leads Shushu away, promising to take her home and bake a brand new cake just for her. Elsewhere, in a cozy room under the moonlight, two men wonder where someone named Ivana has gone. The blue-haired mage walks alone, resolving to have a serious discussion with his companions before they depart tomorrow. Back at the shop, the chef is startled as a heavy sack is slammed onto his counter. The blue-haired mage, now channeling his inner mob boss in a pinstripe suit and fedora, points a gun at the chef to ask for a favor. Back in his robes, he calmly demands a fig cake, and when the chef protests about a lack of ingredients, the mage offers to solve the problem. A brilliant magical light flashes just outside the bakery door. Poof! A batch of perfect, shimmering figs magically appears right in front of the astonished chef. The blue-haired mage smirks, crackling with power, and gives a simple order: do it now. Nearby, Berg reflects on his near-miss encounter with Ivana. He takes a quiet night walk, trying to clear his head after the cake fiasco. The painful memory of Shushu crying in Nini's arms flashes through his mind. He debates his next move: get the figs Ivana brought, or go back and buy the helmet for the princess. He tries to convince himself his decision has absolutely nothing to do with the little princess. He's only doing it, he tells himself, because the helmet reminds him of his older sister, Scarlet. Muttering to himself, he realizes with a jolt that Shushu's strange personality is uncannily similar to his sister's. His mind made up, he turns back toward the town, determined to buy that helmet no matter what. The view pans over a courtyard, where a covered wagon and horses await their departure. Nini holds the drowsy princess, who murmurs that she's sleepy as he wonders if she's finally waking up. But as she gets into the carriage, she's hit with a sudden chill and a terrifying sense of dread. The sound of neighing horses triggers a horrifying flashback to a familiar, blood-soaked place and a monstrous, glowing eye. The memory becomes clear. A much younger version of herself, screaming and crying as she's held captive by robed figures. A dark memory reveals her past life, where her followers considered fleeing before dawn and Nini was captured while trying to escape. In the present, the princess wakes up crying, haunted by the nightmare of her past. Nini holds her close, gently asking if she's okay. Still groggy, she panics, wondering if they're running away and what they could possibly be running from. He soothes her fears, assuring her there's no need to run while the Duke is protecting them. One of her followers explains they're simply departing early and quietly to let her rest. Nini looks down at the sleeping princess with a gentle, protective gaze. He smiles, thinking to himself that he could never abandon such a lovely little princess. As he holds her, she makes a silent vow. This time, she won't lose Nini again. Suddenly, her eyes fly open with a gasp of surprise. She's mesmerized by a beautifully decorated cake, wondering what this amazing sight is. Her jaw drops in pure awe at the magnificent dessert presented to her. A notification from Ivana pops up, explaining she exhausted all her health and magic just to find the special figs for the princess's cake. The princess is absolutely beaming, touched by the thoughtful gift. In the carriage, she excitedly asks to meet Ivana, and Nini happily agrees to call her over. Waving from the carriage, she spots her red-haired uncle arriving with his men. She calls out to him, but he turns away with a curt reply, making her wonder if he's avoiding her. Yes, if she's still angry about yesterday, but she thinks he's the one who should be mad. She puffs out her cheeks, annoyed that her brave attempt at a truce was just ignored. Just then, two of her followers approach, one saying he has something to tell her. A tense moment passes as she looks toward her uncle, who still has his back turned to her. Zap! A shocking realization hits her. Her follower explains the Duke already left for Ataita's land, and she's instantly furious, thinking he couldn't even bother to say goodbye. A sad thought begins to form in her mind. She wonders if the truth is that he just doesn't want to see her at all. She remembers the dropped cake, her hope for reconciliation now smashed on the floor. With tears in her eyes, she realizes she might never get the chance to make up with him. A follower tries to console Nini, assuring him that the princess is still protected by the best knights and magicians. Hearing the Duke still cares about her safety, she tearfully whispers his name. As she prepares to leave, a wave of sadness washes over her at the thought of leaving him behind. With a shout to start, the journey begins, and she's left wondering if he was only ever nice to her to keep the royal family happy. As they ride off, she grits her teeth, feeling like all her plans to connect with the Duke are now officially over. She flashes back to her uncle's bloody death. Her goal was simple: save him from the Emperor's wrath. She tried dropping hints, but it was no use. Now, sitting in the carriage, she decides to forget it. Her hatred for the royals as strong as ever. The real problem hits her. After this mission, she's scheduled to return to the dreaded royal palace, so she needs a new plan. Fast. Her little fox companion pops up, reassuringly telling her not to worry. The princess gives the fluffy creature a grateful, comforting hug. She buries her face in its fur, finding a moment of peace. Meanwhile, the red-haired Duke watches silently as her carriage disappears into the distance. His silver-haired subordinate stands quietly behind him. The silver-haired man calls him leader, asking if he's secretly worried about the princess. He daydreams about meeting the cute princess himself, wondering if the Duke feels the same way. The Duke shoots him an icy glare, asking if he looks like someone who would let personal feelings compromise a mission. Panicking, the man quickly denies it, but the Duke calls his bluff. Then why are you staring at her carriage? The Duke ignores his men as they comically punish the blubbering silver-haired follower. He quietly pulls a single piece of candy from his pocket. It's a sweet memory, a gift from the princess herself, which she held with a radiant smile. A heavy, somber expression falls over his face as he looks at the small candy. The silver-haired man notices his leader's serious mood and apologizes for his earlier comment. He clenches his fist, thinking he's never seen the Duke care so deeply about anyone before. One of her followers assumes everyone feels the same as he does after losing that game. They're all terrified of the Duke, and he worries he won't be able to stay with the princess. Rubes turns to his silver-haired companion, warning him to keep his emotions in check. The silver-haired man sweats, thinking to himself that the real problem is their leader is just way too sensitive. A long caravan of covered wagons makes its way through a desolate mountain pass, trailing behind a much more ornate golden carriage. In a sweet moment, the princess offers Nini a small golden candy. Nini blushes, touched by her gesture, as she chews happily. He tells her she won't be able to eat these snacks around royals, so she has to share them with him now. He worries about the future, imagining menacing royal knights with glowing red eyes coming after him. 3 days later, the group arrives in a rocky canyon, where their grand carriage awaits. One of her followers, Ted, cheerfully announces they're almost at the temple, congratulating everyone on their hard work. Suddenly, the princess bursts into tears, and a panicked Ted asks what's wrong. This sets off a chain reaction, and soon all her followers are sobbing with her, convinced she's just sad to be leaving them. The blue-haired mage, Evana, leans in to comfort her, promising they'll return to see her as soon as they can. Wiping away her tears, she makes him promise, and he smiles warmly, agreeing. In a poignant memory, a hand reaches for Berg, as she resolves not to complain or cry. The scene transitions through images of handwritten letters, hinting at a story yet to be told. A tender memory shows Berg holding the little princess close, surrounded by a shower of flower petals. Now a bit older and wrapped in a cloak, she smiles brightly, thinking this is a moment she'll never forget. Her small hand holds his, a symbol of their unbreakable bond. A sudden gasp. Rubes and the others are on high alert as Evana shields the princess. A lone carriage rumbles away, leaving them behind in the canyon. But another, fancier carriage is approaching, and one of her followers nervously wonders what's going on. Her guards spring into action, forming a protective circle as they yell at the newcomers to back off. A man in a white cape appears, silhouetted by the sun, demanding to know who they are. The princess's eyes narrow as she spots a fluttering red banner bearing the golden lion, the royal crest. Her protectors stand firm, shouting, "Protect the princess," and warning the strangers to stay away. One of her men steps forward, angrily identifying her as the princess of the royal family. Another draws his sword, threatening the strangers to kneel and state their business or face the consequences. The man on horseback just smirks, revealing his identity, Albrayon, captain of the Royal Knights. Rube steps up, introducing himself as the knight charged by the Duke of Wallow to protect the princess and asking for the captain's name. Albrayon formally introduces himself and announces that from now on, he will be escorting the princess. A dark memory hits her. This is Albrayon, the knight who caused her so much trouble in her last life on her uncle's orders. His sudden appearance is a very bad sign. A narrator explains there are two captains of the Royal Knights. One is a respected war hero, and the other is Albrayon, the royal hound who handles the palace's dirty work. He's known as the loyal dog, who operates in the Emperor's shadow. The princess knows exactly what this means. Sending his personal hound to escort her is clearly part of an evil plot. Back in the present, Rubes calmly acknowledges the captain, saying he's heard of him. Albrayon smugly tells them to leave, declaring that he's taking over the escort mission. Rubes flashes a tight smile, refusing to back down, stating he has direct orders from the Duke to see her safely to the temple. Albrayon's patience wears thin as he asks for their forgiveness, making it clear he's not taking no for an answer. That's it. Rubes is officially ticked off. His followers recognize the Devil of Smiles is out, furious that the royals are changing plans and trying to take the princess. The terrified princess clings to her protector, realizing her uncle's plot is starting years earlier this time around. A grim reminder flashes through her mind. Her uncle is a cold-blooded man who shows no mercy to women or children. Albrayon, clearly done with the standoff, asks how much longer they intend to delay him. His face twists into a threatening grin as he asks if they really want to start a war with the royal family. He delivers his final ultimatum: step aside or be branded as traitors in open rebellion. Rubes quickly de-escalates, calling it a misunderstanding. He agrees to leave but insists they take the Duke's well-equipped carriage for the princess's comfort. As he watches the grand carriage, he silently hopes that, even if he's punished for this, her journey will be a safe one. Albrayon smiles, condescendingly accepting what he calls Rubes' sincere heart. He snaps his fingers, ordering two of his men to take the carriage. Rubes and his team can only watch as the Royal Knights take over, a deep sense of dread settling over them. The little princess gives them a small, heartbreaking wave goodbye as she's taken away. A brown-haired man looks back, a determined glint in his eye. As the royal carriage pulls away, a thought hangs in the air. Why is she waving with a face that's holding back tears? Her followers panic, asking Rubes if they can just let the princess be taken by a suspicious man who clearly disrespects her. Another follower insists they can win the fight, but Rubes cautions him against being so careless. The black-haired follower reminds everyone that the Duke specifically ordered them not to start a war with the royal family. Undeterred, they decide they must find the Duke immediately and rally to his position. As the Duke and his silver-haired subordinate walk through the woods, a sense of urgency builds. Someone needs to warn him. A system window pops up, listing the 43 participants in her support group, including familiar names like Ted, Mia, Isaac, and Rotten. The princess scrolls through messages from her adoring followers. Ted offers to buy her anything. Isaac promises a giant fig. Mia calls her leadership incompetent, and Ivana vows to come back for her. In a sweet memory, her followers joyfully present her with a strawberry cake, all of them shouting her name. Back in the present, a single tear rolls down her cheek as she reads their heartfelt messages. She fondly recalls their personalities, Ted's unexpected warmth, Isaac's grand promises, and Mia's constant compliments. She remembers them all cheering for her. A painful memory surfaces of her followers, leaving her behind. Her heart sinks as notifications pop up, showing the number of participants in her group chat dropping from 35 all the way down to 11. A final message arrives from Rubes, apologizing for failing to protect her and promising to persuade the Duke. Nini holds the sobbing princess, begging her not to cry. The royal carriage and its escorts ride on, kicking up dust as they travel. The princess continues to whimper, overwhelmed by sadness. The lonely carriage makes its way through the desolate landscape. Bop! The little fox suddenly appears, startling Nini and the other men inside the carriage. Two royal guards sneer at her, callously remarking on her age and ordering Nini to stay away from her. One of the guards threatens to cut Nini's tongue out, leaving him shaking in fear. With a fake apology, the guard violently yanks the princess away from a horrified Nini. The man dangles her by her clothes, joking about riding a horse while she chokes and struggles to breathe. Gasping for air, she weakly insists that she's okay. But a dark resolve hardens within her as she remembers being treated just as cruelly in her past life. The terror of that moment returns as she silently begs for the suffering to end for her and Nini. Desperate and terrified, she squeezes her eyes shut and screams for help. An immense power begins to radiate from her clenched fists. A massive shockwave of purple energy erupts from her body. The blast rips through the air with devastating force. In the aftermath, a polished shoe presses the lead guard's head into the dirt, his accomplice already defeated nearby. Her uncle, the red-haired duke, has arrived, holding the now unconscious princess safely in his arms. He gazes down at her sleeping face with a stern, protective expression. The little princess's eyes flutter open, and she looks up at her savior. The duke gives her a small, gentle smile and apologizes for being late. Dash! Her followers are spotted racing toward them, screaming her name in a panic. Tears of relief stream down her face as she rests in her uncle's protective embrace. Her followers ride in at full speed, their faces etched with worry and fear. Finally safe, she buries her face in his chest, letting out all her fear and sorrow. The defeated guard demands to know what the Duke of Willow is doing, only for the Duke to coolly ask him the same question. The Duke's imposing shadow looms over them as he shields the princess from harm. Pressing his foot down harder, he dismisses the guards as nothing more than henchmen. Enraged, the guard declares that meddling in imperial affairs means war. The Duke smirks, retorting that he'll have to teach the Emperor's underlings some manners. Hold! Rubes carefully takes the princess into his own arms. Snarl! Her followers, radiating pure fury, ask the Duke for permission to beat the scumbags who dared to touch their angel. Crack! One of them cracks his knuckles, claiming the main culprit for himself, ready to unleash his inner beast. The Imperial Knight's subordinate looks on in horror, realizing they're hopelessly outmatched against the legendary knights and mages of the Willow clan. The captain threatens to report this incident with the Duke of Willow to the Emperor, making the red-haired knight stagger. But the knight just scoffs with a smirk, coolly telling him to go ahead.